All right. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to download those documents, or you did it yesterday when I sent out the email, because it's time to get started. Let's pull up Brin's presentation. And Brin, if you want to unmute yourself. There you go. Without further ado, I will turn things over to Brin Bugo from the Calgary Public Library as she presents her webinar, Don't Sell Yourself Short, How to Build Social Emotional Learning into Any Teen Program. Brin, it's all yours.
Right. Thank you so much, Beth. Thank you so much for having me. I'm getting over a little bit of a cold, so I might have to pause and take a drink or cough a little bit. So I apologize in advance for that. So my name is Brin. I am the Teen and Young Adult Services Librarian at the Calgary Public Library, Central Library in downtown Calgary, Alberta. I've been here for over 2 years now. We are a large urban system with 19 locations, and we serve a population of about 1.3 million. At the Central Library in downtown core, we see many vulnerable youth here, and we strive to provide them with a safe, supportive environment for them to learn skills to help them make the transition into adulthood. We run Monday to Friday after-school programs and have made great strides in building social-emotional learning into our programs. This is a lot more simple than you might think to accomplish, and many of you are probably already doing it without realizing it. For example, an origami program at the library supports both self-awareness and self-management, which are key SEL competencies. Today I'm going to give you a background in social emotional learning theory and approaches, how we use it here at Calgary Public Library, and give you some ideas for how to put it into practice at your own libraries. So as Beth said, please feel free to enter any questions into the chat box and we will get them answered or hold them until the end. All right, so what is social emotional learning? And throughout the webinar, I will probably be referring it to as either social emotional learning or SEL, because social emotional learning is quite the mouthful. So the definition of it from CASEL, which is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, defines it as the process through which children and adults require and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. So these are the skills that they're learning every day through every interaction, but we're not testing them on it. We're not putting it explicitly into curriculum and things like that. And so today I'm going to show you how to make some of those things explicit. So through the library world, lots of libraries already use the Search Institute's 40 developmental assets, and you can put in the chat box whether your library already uses these. I will give a little bit more background. The handout that you have actually has all of the library connections to each of the assets, which is really neat. So we like to refer to the 40 assets as the nutrients that a young person needs to grow and thrive in society and throughout their adulthood. So the more assets that a young person has, the more likely they are to do well in school, be civically engaged, value diversity, and basically be a healthy adult. The more assets they have, the less likely they are to fall into problems with alcohol and drug abuse, violence, sexual activity before they are perhaps ready for it. The assets themselves are not necessarily social and emotional learning, but most of them do support those competencies, such as In the external assets, the support category includes caring neighborhood and other adult relationships. So other adult relationships are people outside school and the family that a young person feels safe with. So that can be library staff, that can be a youth program leader, it can be a cashier at a store that they go to all the time that they have a good relationship with. Empowerment includes community valuing youth and service to others, which both support social emotional learning. Boundaries and expectations is a huge one, and I think this is something that the library can do a great job of setting neighborhood boundaries, because it's one of the few public places that, that they can go, and the library is not necessarily full of authority figures such as school or home or other friends' houses where parents are there. So it's one more place where, they can learn what's acceptable. And of course, constructive use of time includes youth programs and creative activities, which is what we're going to be talking all about today. And then there's the internal assets, and these are really I refer to them as social emotional learning competencies, because there's the positive values, which includes responsibility and integrity, which lead into responsible decision making. There's social competencies, which includes interpersonal competence, which feeds directly into interpersonal skills. Then there is, of course, positive identity, including self-esteem and sense of purpose. Library programs in general support integrity, responsibility, interpersonal competence, resistance skills, and many others. So if you're not already using the 40 assets, you're already using the 40 assets in your library. You're just not making it explicit yet. Mm-hmm. And if you're not already using, sorry, I said that wrong. So if you are using the 40 assets, you're already using SEL competencies in your library. So the next one I'm going to be talking about is High Five, and High Five is a program out of Ontario, Canada, that's become a national standard in Canadian recreation programs for children and teens. It was developed by Parks and Rec Ontario, but it applies to library programs as well. Out of their research, High Five determined 5 principles of healthy child development. So there's a caring adult. That would be you. The opportunity to make friends. The opportunity to play. Even teens and adults enjoy playing. The opportunity to participate, so welcoming, inclusive spaces and programs. The opportunity to master skills, both hard skills and soft skills. So High Five in action in a library program would have a caring facilitator, other youth, a safe and welcoming environment, and the opportunity to explore skills such as conflict management in a fun way, like a Smash Brothers tournament, where they're learning to express themselves in, we had a group of youth who would come almost every day, and all they wanted to play was Smash Brothers, even though we have a PlayStation 4, and like really good games. All they want to play is Smash Brothers on the Wii, like not even on the Wii U. And one day, one of them said to me, I love coming to the library and playing Smash Brothers because then we don't fight outside of the library. So these are kids that often get into fights, they experience a lot of violence in their lives, and so coming to the library helped them manage some of those feelings before they got out of control, which is really, really cool.
And I love these five high five principles, because I think they're so simple and straightforward and easy to understand. Just caring adult, friends, play, mastery of a subject, and participation.
And I love them because they apply to kids, they apply to adults, they can apply to adults, and they can, of course, apply to teens. And so and there's only 5 of them, so it's really easy to remember. Okay, now we're going to talk about the big name in social emotional learning, which is CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. They have just like the 40 assets, they have a very robust body of research and resources. According to their research, there's 5 social emotional learning competencies that people need to successfully participate in society. So you have the definitions both on the screen and in your handouts, so I'm not going to read through them all the way, but I'm just going to highlight some things in each of them. So under self-awareness, it's all about recognizing thoughts and feelings and how those affect your behavior. But it's also about knowing your own strengths and limitations. So some specific skills include identifying emotions, self-confidence, and self-efficacy. So for example, we do a program where we make strength stones, which are small rocks that are decorated with a word that has meaning for the holder to help them through difficult emotions. So I know one of our youth, she carries around a crystal and she puts all of her negative emotions into the crystal, and that way she can deal with other things in her life. And so strength stones are kind of the same idea, or it's something that they can look at to remind themselves that, I had one person write bravery on there so that when they held it, they can remember to be brave. So those are pretty cool. Self-management is another big one. It's all about regulation and motivation. So some specific skills include self-discipline, self-motivation, and organizational skills. And honestly, I think this is probably one of the more difficult ones for teens, especially since their prefrontal cortex is still under development, which is where a lot of these skills are housed in the brain. So what I like to do for self-management are things that can be healthy stress coping activities, such as like coloring pages, which is a really easy one that is not necessarily even, you don't even necessarily need to facilitate it. Another one that we really like to do is we like to make slime and then put the slime into balloons to make stress balls, which is a lot of fun. We've made those glitter jars, so you shake it up and then the glitter settles slowly, and so a lot of creative activities are ways that youth can manage stress. Another one is perler beads. The act of doing something methodical that requires a lot of attention, and so you're taking some time out to think about something else for a little while. Those ones are really, really good. Obviously, crafts swing more towards female participants, but I think Smash Brothers and things like that are also great ways to learn self-management, especially if you're doing some kind of tournament where they have to deal with, if they lose, that can be stressful, but that's a good kind of stress. And it helps them learn to manage those kinds of things in a safe setting. The next one is social awareness, and that's all about understanding social and ethical norms and the ability to empathize with people from a variety of backgrounds. Specific skills include empathy and respect for others. An example program would be any kind of competitive games such as bowling, where you give them the opportunity to learn social norms and to become a gracious winner and to become where's a gracious loser? I don't remember. Sometimes I get words mixed up. But to learn how to lose and not freak out. Some other good things is that under social awareness is we've made an effort to we have rules that govern our teen area that are in addition to like the library rules, where we got a group of some of our regular youth together and we wrote them together. And so that's them constructing social and ethical norms that they want to see in that space, which is really, really important. And of course, when you involve youth in creating rules, they're more likely to follow them.
This is Beth again. Sorry to interrupt you.
But no, of course.
We have a few libraries who do have trouble with large groups of teens who, there's just so many of them. And so I love this idea of having them create their own rules, like you said, because sometimes that might be the only way they can get buy-in from those teens.
Definitely, and like so it resulted in like some weird some weird wording. Like one of our rules currently is leave your beefs at the door. And I'm like, okay, like, do we really want to put like leave your beefs at the door on like an official library document? But that is that's the wording that they choose. So that's the wording that we have. Another thing, being a large downtown location, is we see a huge variety of teens. We see the kids who come to study and they never participate in activities because they're too busy studying. We see kids who are homeless or at risk of being homeless. We see kids that are street involved. We see kids who are just like normal, regular kids. So we see like a huge, and we see a lot of newcomers as well. So we offer them the opportunity to really meet a huge variety of other youth, which has been really beneficial. And often you can go into the teen area and you can see all of these groups together and sharing a space and being respectful of each other and forming friendships across those groups. And it's really a beautiful thing. So that ties in obviously to relationship skills, and which is all about establishing and maintaining healthy relationships. So some specific skills are communication and teamwork. Cooperative games such as locked rooms really promote communication and teamwork. Other ones where we've played a game where they have to work as a team to build a tower out of cups, but they can't actually touch the cups. They have to use a rubber band with strings attached to it, so they have to like stretch it out and then like grab the cup and then lift the cup onto the tower and let it go, which has been really interesting. And they get really, really competitive, but it's also they're cooperating as a team. And then, of course, there's going to be, no matter what type of program you're doing, there's going to be disagreements. There's going to be conflict. And this is really our opportunity to teach them healthy ways of dealing with this. And so as staff, we can help mediate some of these disagreements, but we're also not necessarily an authority figure. So we're not, unless things get really out of hand, we're not there to discipline, we're not there to punish. And so we're not quite peers, but not quite authority figures, which is a really interesting place to be. And then last, all by its lonesome there on the right, is responsible decision making. And it's all about having the ability to make constructive decisions and evaluate the consequences of those choices. And as library staff that work with teens, I think we can all agree that this is something that is very difficult for teenagers. And it's a product of their prefrontal cortex being still under construction. So some of the specific skills that we can help them with are solving problems, analyzing situations, and reflecting. The reflecting piece is a huge one. So, for example, we play a game that we call Fact or Opinion, where the youth need to determine whether the statement written on a card is a fact or an opinion, and reflecting on, why do I think that way? Why is my opinion different from somebody else's opinion, and how can we all be respectful of those opinions versus facts, which has fostered some really interesting conversations, especially as of late with the era of fake news. In Canada, we have been watching from afar some of the stuff that's been happening, and our teens are watching it as well. I would say that our teens know more about American politics at the moment than Canadian politics, which in some ways is less than ideal. But I think it speaks to just the universality of, what happens when what you think is the truth is being attacked, and how it's really an opportunity for us as well to be teaching them these skills, which is awesome. Another thing that CASEL is really concerned with are SAFE program principles, and that's SAFE like capital S, like an acronym. So when you are incorporating social emotional learning into programming, there are 4 things that CASEL says need to be in place in order for it to be successful. So, and I don't have this on the slide, I apologize for that, but I can type it into the chat. Well, I think I can type and talk at the same time. So we have sequenced, which is that the activities are connected and coordinated. It is active, which just refers to the form of learning. So it's active learning, not passive learning. So you're opting for activity-based or inquiry-based activities instead of lectures and things like that. It also needs to be focused. Whoops, there we go. So you have to have a component that emphasizes social emotional learning skills, and it has to be explicit, which means you're targeting specific social emotional learning skills. It might support more than what you are targeting, but it's important to have a target. That way you're thinking with keeping that specific skill or set of skills in mind while you're planning and while you're facilitating the program. The next time you facilitate the exact same program, you might choose different skills to target. Okay, that was a marathon. No, it's a sprint. It was more like a sprint through just a couple of approaches to social emotional learning. Of course, there are many others, and I encourage you to go looking for them. But CASEL really is the big name in social emotional learning. Does anybody have any questions at this time? I know that's a lot of information to take in all at once, and so I'm not expecting like super profound questions.
Hey, Brin, I just wanted to mention also that the sequenced, active, focused, explicit, that's in one of their handouts.
Oh,
And
perfect.
if you joined us late, if you didn't get the handouts through email or before we started, they'll be up at the end also, so you can download them then too. I wanted to point out, you've mentioned the prefrontal cortex, and just a heads up for anybody who didn't know, that part of your brain is not fully developed, especially in males, until as late as the age 25. So they really, through all their teen years and then even through college, a lot of those kids are struggling with still learning things like self-management and impulse control and things like that. So makes a lot of sense, really.
Yeah, the brain during your teen years develops from the back, which houses things like oh man, I lost the word. Just
Well, there's like
it's like your cerebellum, so it's like your physical coordination, and then like your emotions, and then very lastly is all of your judgment. Yeah. So it's no wonder that teens take huge risks and don't think of the consequences, because it's just not how their brain is working. I could talk about brain development all day too, but that's not what we're here for. Okay. So we're going to talk now about how here at Calgary Public Library we use it. So here are a couple of pictures from our programs. We have some young gentlemen on the left playing some games, some video games, and then on the right is from one of our Valentine's Day programs. We're doing Destroy the Stuffies, and now that is their favorite activity, to make Franken stuffies. It's really hilarious. I love it. So that one is eating an arm from a baby doll. We found these weird puppets, but it was really fun. So here at Calgary Public Library, our teen area used to be on the children's floor, and 3 or 4 years ago, I can't remember which, we moved it onto a different floor and created a teen room. So at the beginning, nobody was really in charge of it. We didn't have a teen librarian. It was kind of tacked onto another librarian's portfolio, and it was there was a lot of problems. It wasn't staffed. Staff didn't understand how to interact with teens. So that was the state when I arrived. So since I've been here, we've been really working to implement and maintain the space as a safer space for youth. While Canada doesn't have a national program such as Safe Place, we've been using principles inspired by that program. For example, all of our team programming staff are trained in social emotional learning, and we are working on having them all trained in mental health first aid. Our team programming staff are expected to capitalize on teachable moments as they relate to social emotional learning, and if they are at a loss, we always have other staff that are available to help support them. So we have some example programs. So they are in the program handouts. So as you can see on that handout, we build the social emotional learning outcomes directly into every plan to make what we're looking to achieve explicit. So those are suggested ones for staff who they're maybe new to social emotional learning, or they're not entirely sure which competencies they would like to target with that program. So they can choose other ones if that's what they would like to focus on that day, or something happens in the program that changes. We all know that the plan that you start off with is often not the plan that happens, especially with teen programs, because we like to allow the teens to take the program where they want it to go. SEL outcomes can be achieved by a wide variety of programs, from self-directed ones to facilitated. from crafts to gaming. So behind the template are examples of 4 different programs that we run. So different activities can support both similar and different social-emotional learning outcomes. The SEL outcomes for each program, they're of course not exhausted. We chose to keep the outcomes to 2 to 6 to avoid overwhelming our staff and to keep them focused. So another piece of that CASEL programming principles is to keep it focused. So we're not going to try and target every single competency with a single program. It might support all of those things, but we're going to be explicit and focused on a couple. We avoid passive activities such as lectures or presentations and instead opt for facilitated or self-directed activities. So even our more formal and educational programs are led by our participants' needs. So for example, we have financial literacy programs where really the presenters, we do it with an outside agency, and they come in and they have a specific program plan, but often what we see here is that our youth really just want to ask questions. So if we're having a program on budgeting, the presenter comes with an example activity of budgeting where they have a party, they have a certain amount of money, they can choose from all of these things, and learn to deal with a budget that way. But because quite a few of our teens are already self-supporting in some way, they need help with real life budgeting. So how can I afford, I get this much money from the government every month, or I earn this much at my job every month. How can I pay for rent and buy food? So those are kinds of the things that we try to then work with our outside presenters to be like, hey, we need you to be flexible, and often they are, which is awesome. Okay, so we're going to run through an example program. I mentioned origami earlier. This one is in your packet. My notes for this slide are the same as the last slide, so it's gonna be okay. So we have what you will need for that program. We have program instructions. Origami, we don't have like super detailed instructions for it because origami is pretty straightforward as long as you have paper and instructions for them to follow. But what I really want to talk about on here is the competencies. So as you'll see, we have both the social-emotional learning core competencies it supports and developmental assets. So we use CASEL competencies and the Search Institute's 40 assets to give a more rounded picture of what we're really doing with each program. So for origami, we chose to highlight self-awareness and self-management. So we don't just put the competency, but we also explain why we put it there. So for self-awareness, engaging in creative activities, youth are learning more about their own abilities and gaining confidence in a low-risk setting. So they've never tried origami before. Maybe they are fantastic at it, and they've never tried it before, so now they're learning more about what they can do, and if they are successful, they're gaining confidence in their abilities. For self-management, creative activities of all kinds can help lower stress and help you stay motivated to finish what they've started. So I am super, super, super guilty of the unfinished project. My craft room is filled with unfinished projects, which I'm sure we've all started something and not finish it, or we get frustrated. Especially, I think I'm not good at origami, and I always get frustrated with it. So I like to do this with teens to show them that, I'm getting frustrated with this. It's okay if you get frustrated, but let's work through this together, and let's try to finish it. And then, so of course, origami also, if you're doing it in a group, it supports relationship skills and social, sorry, I have to flip back in my notes, and social awareness. But even responsible decision making, to some degree, like if you're trying to problem solve what went wrong, that's supporting responsible decision making. So it's really, they can really support almost anything. But if you try to focus on too many things, you're going to lose targeting just a couple. So for developmental assets, I try to include one internal and one external asset, which I see I did not do here. Those are both external assets. But as a general rule, I do try to include one internal and one external. So in the empowerment category, the community values youth. So for origami, we often allow them, we often do origami as a self-directed activity. So we set up the supplies on a table, and then maybe on another table we set up a space for them to display their stuff. And so giving youth an opportunity to display their work in the library, you're showing them that the library values their contributions and the library values what they have to offer, which I think is very important, because a lot of our youth are recipients of social assistance and often are recipients of many social supports, and can feel like they don't have anything to offer. So even something small like this shows them that they do have something worthwhile to give. Also, I've highlighted constructive use of time. So creative activities, this one can go under so many library programs. And so I realize now, reading this, that I probably, I said the exact same thing in two of them. So in self-management and constructive use of time, creative activities, it's basically, I'm saying the same thing. So really, instead of four competencies and assets, is actually only 3. So this shows that it's really important to be thinking about what you are writing down, because that is the same thing twice. Which I guess it's not a bad thing. Not necessarily, because now it's even more focused, but maybe a little bit redundant. So I am done talking. So we have some time. We have time for questions, and then if there aren't a lot of questions, we have a couple of activities that we can do as a group.
Yay, activities! I think what we'll do, if it's okay with you, Brin, is I'm going to pull up the first one, and if anybody does have questions, please go ahead and continue to type them in the chat box. I don't see anybody typing right now, but maybe with this exercise we'll have a little more involvement. So what we kind of designed is just a really simple poll. We have 3 different programs that are kind of popular teen program. Maybe your library has done them yourself. And then I put all of the developmental assets and the social and emotional competencies on the screen. And then I just want you guys here, let me put the first one up. I just want you guys to select the ones that you think could apply to this particular program. So the first one is, let me make it a little bigger. The first one is duct tape crafts. So if you did a duct tape craft, which of these, and it could be many more than one, so select all that apply. Oh, and you guys are so good. Look at you already starting to vote. Constructive use of time is getting lots of votes. Self-awareness, self-management. Boundaries and expectations. Interesting. So, Brin, would you agree with the direction that this is going?
So, honestly, I think every program that we do definitely supports boundaries and expectations, because we're informally teaching them how to behave in the community. And especially when it's something that, involves sharp things, involves having to share, because everybody wants that one duct tape. Like, there's always seems to be like one pattern that everybody wants, and there's not enough for them all to make a wallet out of it. And so I think, yeah, and of course self-management. Creative activities are huge for self-management, because they're often, if it's something they've never tried before, they're often frustrating when it doesn't turn out the way that they want. It's also, if they are good at it and it is something that they enjoy doing, it's something that can relax them. So it has a two-pronged approach or support. I don't know. It's early here, kind of.
Yeah, I should, Calgary, everybody is on mountain time, so it's 2 hours earlier for her. All right, let's do the next one. Let's do the next program. Let me do the quick switcheroo. And this one is for Super Smash Brothers, which is one that Brin actually mentioned. Here, hold on one second. There we go. So, which of these competencies do you guys think would apply to holding a Super Smash Brothers tournament? One person says social awareness. There we go. Let's see. Oh, lots of relationship skills. Yeah, definitely. Boundaries and expectations. Are they on the right track with this one?
Yes, definitely. I think, as a general rule, here at Calgary Public Library, we only purchase games that are multiplayer. So that way we are always fostering relationship skills with our gaming. We don't have, okay, that's not entirely true. We have one single-player game, and that's because it was donated. But people don't really play it that much, which is ideal, because we don't want... for us, gaming programs are very much a social activity. They're not they're not what you typically think of. Like, gaming is very stationary, and it's not the gaming that they do at home. It's the gaming that, they're playing Just Dance, and so they're active. They're playing Smash Brothers, and so they're getting really, really into it, and, taking turns, and the style they always play is King's Court, where the winner stays on until they lose, and then so on and so forth, which they came up with all by themselves. Staff rarely have to intervene on that, which is really awesome. The only time that staff have to kind of intervene is when we have two different groups who want to play two different games. And then, of course, we institute time limits and things like that so that everybody gets a chance. But when we have a tournament, they police themselves, and it's awesome. Of course, that took about a year to get under control. At first, we had to have sign-ups and things like that, but after a while, they gained those relationship skills with each other and were able to then start organizing it themselves, which is awesome.
That's great. Do you have a lot of regulars, or do you have quite a few kids who are brand new all the time?
There's a nice mix. We have about 10 who come almost every day. We have probably about 20 to 30 who come maybe once or twice a week. And then the rest, they might come a couple times a month or like once ever. So we do have a nice mix. How do we get teens to come to the library for these programs? That's actually a good question, because when I started, we had no teens, and now we average about 15 to 25 every day, which is awesome. So, because if we were by a school, it would be super easy. You just go to the school, and like what I've done at other locations where we were close to a school was I went to the school at lunchtime and just talked to kids, and got to let them know, hey, we have free food. So obviously that's a big draw. Free snacks. We only offer healthy snacks. Partly because it's part of a requirement for, we have a citywide program, after-school programming, and to be part of that, that's one of their conditions. You have to offer a healthy snack, but I would offer a healthy snack anyway as opposed to something unhealthy, because a lot of our kids have unstable food sources, and so it's one place that they know that they can get something slightly healthy. So what I did was since we're not by any schools or anything, is that I actually we have a couple of youth drop-in spaces, one downtown and one just outside downtown. So I partnered with them. So I go to one of them, I visit every week because they're just slightly out of downtown. And the other one, I just send them flyers for our programs. And then word of mouth starts happening. We let teens know when they come into the library for to borrow items. We let them know about our programs. So there's the biggest thing about getting teens to come to programs is forming relationships. So through my outreach visits to the youth drop-in is that I got to know some kids. They started coming. They started bringing their friends and stuff like that. So that's the biggest thing, is I think forming relationships with some kids.
Yeah, and making yourself visible in the schools, like you said, I think that's a great way to do it too. Sometimes you have to go to them. If they're not coming to you, you have to go out there and talk to them, and also maybe do programs at the schools. Talk to the school librarians and see if you can do like a STEM tinker group or something in the library after hours or something, and then eventually maybe those people migrate over to your actual library.
We have anime in our DVD collection, so we do movie days, and often it is an anime, but within that we are constricted by our public performance rights. We are lucky that our public performance rights have, we can show Disney, which means that we can show Studio Ghibli, which is awesome.
Oh.
Rebecca, love the teens in my teen advisory group, but they are big, loud personalities. Yes, it is. It's very difficult to get them focused on activities, so our tag meetings often end up just being hangout time. Everyone seems to have fun, and they keep coming back, but I don't necessarily feel like we're accomplishing anything. What do you think of that? I think you're accomplishing a lot. You're not necessarily accomplishing your agenda of the activities that you want to do or what you want to accomplish, but you are supporting all of those social emotional development and competencies. So if it's a matter of the administration doesn't think you're accomplishing anything with those, now you have language to express what you're actually doing. And you're not if you're not, when it comes to teen programming, I think, and especially things like teen advisory groups, is that your agenda is not their agenda. So honestly, when I do a teen program, I am not looking for everybody to be involved in the activity. Like, so I'll plan an activity, people, maybe 5 people participate out of the 20. But other kids are playing the PlayStation, which we always have out during programs. Some others are doing their homework. Some others are just hanging out and learning about boundaries and expectations because, they're fooling around, they're leaving a mess, so we're expecting them to clean up. I think any kind of participation is good participation. So no matter how they're participating, they're learning something. The teen librarian started an anime club, but if only one teen comes in, is it really worth continuing, or would you switch to another program? How long has it been running? A couple of years, yeah, I would switch. If I say if you're not seeing an upward trend within 6 months of running a program, then it's time to do something else, because that's clearly not something that they want to do.
They can still talk to that particular teen about anime too, so they don't have to just completely stop.
No, of course not. I wouldn't. That's a great relationship, but maybe instead of, yeah, I also know nothing about anime. Like I have watched Howl's Moving Castle. I think that's like it. That's all I know. But so I think what you might want to do is just offer like an open-ended program and see what, and offer like a bunch of different activities. Have it at the same time on the same day. So consistency is absolutely key. So even during the summer, we offer our teen, we obviously don't offer Monday to Friday during the summer because it's summer, but we still offer it at the exact same time so that they know they come to the library at 4 o'clock, there will be something happening. And so I think offering kind of like an open library time on a regular day and seeing what types of things that they want to do, or go to the school and ask at lunchtime and ask, hey, what would you guys like to do at the library? Or why are you not coming to the library? Things like that. Does that make sense?
Okay, well, we are down to our last 2 minutes. So we have this last pull-up here, which a few of you did respond to, so thank you for that, for an escape room or an escape box. And it looks like we've got some relationship skills, which is totally true because you got to work together to do those. Social competencies, which also involve peaceful conflict resolution, so if you disagree with somebody, so yeah, I would agree with that too. Do you have any other last thoughts about this?
Actually, add commitment to learning, because you can definitely tie them to curriculum. If you have not, I'm going to type it in the chat box, but Breakout EDU, a free, the kits, they sell like escape box kits, but they also have free escape box programs that are geared towards educators, but I've done them in the library as well.